The ultimatum. The crystalline halls of the Galactic Council chamber hummed with an energy that bordered on hysteria. Ambassador Velthrax of the Zorvian Collective slammed 3 of his 4 arms against the podium, his bioluminescent skin flashing angry crimson patterns. "This is madness," he roared, his translator struggling to keep pace with his fury. "The humans have ignored 17 official summons, rejected 43 diplomatic envoys, and now they've simply stopped responding to our communications entirely." Councillor Myrene Salix, the silver-skinned representative of the Pandari Union, nodded gravely from her floating platform. Her voice carried the weight of centuries. In 12,000 years of council history, no species has ever refused to negotiate. Not the warlike Kryn. Not the isolated Netherii. Not even the hive-minded Korath when they first achieved faster-than-light travel. High Chancellor Draven Koss, a towering figure from the Arcturus domain, rose from his seat at the center of the circular chamber. His 6 eyes scanned the assembled representatives from 400 member species, all chattering in dozens of languages, all showing the same emotion: fear. "Silence." Draven's command echoed through the chamber. "We must approach this logically. The humans appeared on the galactic stage only 30 standard cycles ago. They established colonies on 12 worlds. They've been polite if distant in their interactions. What changed?" Velthrax brought up a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. It showed Earth's solar system, then zoomed out to reveal the surrounding space. Dozens of human ships patrolled the borders, but that wasn't what made the council members gasp. "This," Velthrax said, pointing to a massive structure orbiting Jupiter. "Our intelligence suggests the humans have constructed something. We don't know what it is. Every probe we've sent to investigate has been destroyed before getting within scanning range. Not captured. Not warned away. Destroyed." "Surely this is a misunderstanding," offered Kelrith, the insectoid ambassador from the Chittering Worlds. "Perhaps we should send a larger diplomatic fleet? Show them we come in peace." Myrene's laugh was bitter. "We tried that. 200 ships, unarmed, broadcasting friendship on every frequency known to galactic civilization. Do you know what the humans did?" The chamber fell silent. They sent a single message. 3 words: "Turn around. Now." When our fleet continued forward, showing we meant no harm, the humans disabled every single ship's propulsion system with some kind of pulse weapon. It took us 6 cycles to tow them all back. Not a single shot was fired that could have harmed a living being, but the message was clear. They could have destroyed us, but they chose not to. Draven's largest eye fixed on the hologram. "What do we know about human culture? Their psychology?" A scholarly-looking Vexian named Thorn Quillix floated forward, her tentacles manipulating data tablets. "We have limited information, mostly from their public broadcasts and the few trade interactions they permitted before they closed their borders. Humans are contradictory. They value both cooperation and independence. They're capable of great compassion and terrible violence. They've survived multiple extinction-level events on their homeworld through sheer stubbornness." "Stubbornness?" Velthrax spat. "Is that what we're calling this?" "No," Thorn continued. "I'd call this something else. Every species in council space operates on the principle that communication solves problems. We negotiate. We compromise. We find middle ground. But humans have a saying: sometimes the only winning move is not to play." Draven leaned forward. "Explain." "I believe the humans have decided that engaging with the council at all puts them at a disadvantage. By refusing to negotiate, they're not being stubborn. They're being strategic." The chamber erupted in angry chatter. The concept was alien to species who had built their entire civilization on the foundation of galactic cooperation. "This cannot stand," Velthrax shouted. "We are the Galactic Council. We represent 400 civilizations spanning 10,000 star systems. We cannot allow one upstart species to simply ignore us." "And yet," Myrene said softly, "that is exactly what they're doing." Draven raised a hand for silence. "What are our options?" Velthrax's skin pulsed with confidence. "We have the enforcement fleet. 20,000 warships. The humans have, at most, 300. We could force them to negotiate. And if they refuse even then?" Myrene challenged. "Then we make them understand the consequences of defying the council." Thorn Quillix's tentacles trembled. "High Chancellor, I must advise extreme caution. We know almost nothing about human military capabilities. What if nothing?" Velthrax interrupted. "No single species can stand against the combined might of the council. This is simple mathematics." Draven looked around the chamber, seeing fear, anger, and pride in the faces of hundreds of species. I want all available intelligence on humanity compiled and analyzed. I want to know why they're doing this. And I want to know what they're building near Jupiter. We reconvene in 3 cycles. As the council members filed out, Myrene approached Draven privately. You're considering Velthrax's suggestion. I'm considering all options. The humans haven't attacked anyone. They haven't threatened anyone. They've simply said no. Is that truly worth going to war over? Draven's 6 eyes all focused on her. It's not about what they've done, Myrene. It's about what their refusal represents. If one species can simply ignore the council and face no consequences, why would anyone else continue to participate? Our entire civilization is built on cooperation and shared governance. The humans are threatening the very foundation of galactic society. Or, Myrene said quietly, they're showing us that cooperation only works when both parties want it. Perhaps we should ask ourselves why they don't want it. But Draven was already walking away, his mind made up. The council had never backed down from a challenge to its authority. It wouldn't start now. In orbit around Earth, Captain Zara Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Human Defense Station Sentinel watching the recorded footage of the council meeting. Human intelligence had infiltrated council systems 3 years ago, long before the council even knew humanity was paying attention. They're going to come with force, her tactical officer, Marcus Chen, observed. Zara nodded. Let them come. They think we're refusing to negotiate because we're stubborn or foolish. We're not. A slight smile crossed Zara's face. We're refusing to negotiate because we've seen how the council operates. Every species that joins gives up a piece of their sovereignty. Every decision goes through committees that take decades. Every innovation gets buried under regulations. They offer protection and stability, but the price is freedom. And the structure near Jupiter? Exactly what they fear it is. The Council has been the only galactic power for so long, they've forgotten what competition looks like. We're not refusing to negotiate, Marcus. We're refusing to submit. There's a difference. Marcus pulled up a star chart. They have 20,000 warships. They have 20,000 ships that have never fought a peer adversary. Every conflict they've ever had was peacekeeping operations against primitive species or internal disputes. When was the last time the Council actually faced a threat? Never, according to records. Zara's smile grew. Then they're in for one hell of an education. Open a channel to Fleet Command. Tell Admiral Kovac the Council just moved exactly as we predicted. Phase 2 begins now. And if they actually attack? Then we show them why humanity survived when 99% of our world burned. We show them why we crossed an ocean in wooden boats. We show them why we split the atom and walked on our moon before we even knew aliens existed. Zara's eyes hardened. We show them that some species negotiate from weakness, hoping for mercy. Humans? We only negotiate from strength. And right now, we're not nearly strong enough to negotiate on equal terms. So we don't negotiate at all. Not yet. First, we make them understand what they're dealing with. Then, when they're ready to talk to us as equals instead of subjects. She paused. Then we'll negotiate. On our terms. The Galactic Council thought humanity's silence was madness. They had no idea it was a strategy 12 years in the making, and they were only just beginning to understand the game they'd entered. The price of arrogance. 3 cycles later, the Galactic Council reconvened in emergency session. The atmosphere had shifted from anger to barely contained panic. Thorn Quillix activated the central hologram with trembling tentacles. High Chancellor, Counselors, we have a problem. A significant problem. The hologram displayed a dozen star systems, each marked with human activity. In the 3 cycles since our last meeting, humanity has established military outposts in 6 previously unclaimed systems along the Perseus Arm. They've begun mining operations on 47 asteroids rich in heavy metals. And most concerning, she zoomed in on a nebula region. They've started construction on 7 more of those structures like the one near Jupiter. Velthrax's skin flickered through colors of confusion. Oh. We had scouts monitoring all human activity. No fleet of that size left their territory. That's because they didn't use fleets, Thorn explained. They use something they call seed ships. Small, automated vessels that travel at sublight speeds, carrying construction nanites and artificial intelligence systems. The humans apparently launched hundreds of these 6 years ago, before they even made first contact with us. They've been spreading through unclaimed space this entire time and we never noticed. Counselor Myrene studied the display with growing unease. Those systems they've claimed are all along major trade routes. If they fortify them. They already have, interrupted Kelrith, his mandibles clicking nervously. Chittering merchant vessels reported being scanned by automated defense platforms. The humans allowed them to pass, but the message was clear. Those systems are now under human control. Draven slammed his hand on the armrest. This is an act of aggression. They're expanding while refusing all diplomatic contact. Technically, Thorne said carefully, they're only claiming uninhabited systems. By council law, any species can stake claim to unclaimed territory. The humans are following our own legal framework. While ignoring every request for dialogue, Velthrax roared. We cannot allow this to continue. High Chancellor, I formally request authorization to deploy the enforcement fleet. The humans must be brought to heel. Myrene rose from her platform. And what exactly do you propose? Attacking human installations and legally claimed territory? That would make us the aggressors. They're already aggressors by refusing council authority. Refusing to join the council isn't the same as attacking it, Myrene countered. We have no legal basis for military action. None. Draven held up a hand. What about the intelligence Thorne gathered? What have we learned about human capabilities? Thorne's tentacles shifted through her data tablets. Less than I'd hoped. The humans are extraordinarily careful about information security. What we do know is troubling. They possess faster-than-light communication across their entire network. Something we thought impossible. Their ships use a propulsion system we can't identify. And their weapons technology. She paused. In the encounter where they disabled our diplomatic fleet, our best analysts estimate they used less than 5% of the available energy from their ship's power cores. The chamber fell silent. 5%. Draven repeated. What could they do with the other 95? We don't know. And that's what frightens me. Velthrax scoffed. You're giving them too much credit? Yes, they have some advanced technology. But they're still one species. We are 400. The mathematics haven't changed. Perhaps the mathematics are irrelevant, said a new voice. All eyes turned to the chamber entrance, where Archon Vex stood, the ancient leader of the Preservers, the Council's oldest and most respected faction. Vex rarely attended council sessions anymore, preferring contemplation to politics. His presence meant something significant was happening. Archon, Draven said, bowing slightly. Your wisdom is welcome. Vex moved slowly into the chamber, his age evident in every step. I have lived through the incorporation of 87 species into the council. Every single one followed the same pattern. First contact, cultural exchange, negotiation, membership. Some took longer than others, but all eventually joined. Do you know why? No one answered. Because we offered them something they wanted more than independence. Safety. Knowledge. Access to galactic trade and technology. We made membership so attractive that refusal seemed foolish. Vex's ancient eyes swept the chamber. But what if humanity doesn't want what we're offering? Everyone wants safety, Velthrax insisted. Do they? Or do we simply assume they do because we do? Vex activated his own display, showing Earth's history. This species evolved on a death world. Their planet has tried to kill them through ice ages, meteor impacts, volcanic eruptions, and plagues that wiped out large portions of their population. And yet they survived. Thrived even. Images flashed across the hologram. Humans crossing frozen wastelands, building civilizations in deserts, creating underground cities in regions that should have been uninhabitable. They don't seek safety. They seek challenge. We offer them the comfort of joining the largest civilization in the galaxy. They see it as a cage. Vex turned to Draven. High Chancellor, I believe humanity's refusal to negotiate isn't defiance. It's a test. A test of what? Of us. They want to see if we'll respect their right to say no, or if we'll try to force them into compliance. Every action we take now is being watched and judged. Velthrax's skin flashed angry purple. With respect, Archon, we cannot set a precedent that species can simply ignore the Council. What message does that send? The message, Myrene interjected, that the Council rules by consent, not by force. Isn't that the foundation of everything we've built? Consent given under the understanding that refusing consent has consequences. Archon Vex raised a hand. Then perhaps we should examine what those consequences should be. Velthrax advocates for military action. But consider, if we attack humanity and win, we'll have proven ourselves to be exactly what they feared, bullies who demand submission. Every other species will see that refusing the Council means destruction. Is that the legacy you want? And if we do nothing? Velthrax challenged. If we let them continue expanding, claiming systems, growing stronger? Then perhaps we'll learn to coexist with a species that doesn't want to join us. The galaxy is large enough for multiple power structures. No, Draven said firmly. The Archon is wise but wrong on this point. The Council exists because we united under one banner. Multiple power structures means competition. Competition means conflict. Conflict means war. We've had 12,000 years of peace precisely because there is only one council. Or, Myrene said softly, we've had 12,000 years of stagnation because there's been no one to challenge us. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some supported Velthrax's call for military action. Others sided with Myrene's caution. Archon Vex simply watched, seeing the council tear itself apart over a single word, no. Meanwhile, in a classified facility beneath the surface of Mars, Dr. Kenji Yamamoto reviewed the latest intelligence reports with growing satisfaction. They're debating military action, his assistant, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, Zara's younger sister, noted. Let them debate. Every day they spend arguing is another day we fortify our positions. Kenji pulled up schematics of the Jupiter station. How long until the first gateway is operational? 72 hours. The other 7 will come online over the following week. And they still don't know what they do? Sarah smiled. They think they're weapons platforms. They have no idea they're FTL gates that'll give us instant travel across 1,000 light years. By the time they figure it out, we'll have colonies in 3 different spiral arms. Kenji sat back in his chair. The Council operates on the assumption that all species develop technology at roughly the same pace. They never considered that we might have taken a different path. They also operate on the assumption that all species want to join them. That's the mistake that'll cost them everything. They can't conceive of a species that looks at their grand civilization and says, no thank you, we'll do it ourselves. Sarah pulled up footage of the Council meeting. They'd hacked those systems long ago. Velthrax is pushing for war. I know. And Draven will probably give it to him. The Council has never faced real opposition. They don't know how to handle it except with force. What if they commit their full fleet? 20,000 ships, Kenji. We have 300. Kenji's smile was cold. Then they'll learn the first rule of human warfare. Numbers don't mean anything if you're fighting the wrong battle. We're not going to face them ship to ship, Sarah. We're going to make them chase ghosts while we build an empire they can't touch. And if innocent people die? The smile faded. Then we make sure every single death matters. The Council thinks in terms of politics and diplomacy. We think in terms of survival. That's why we'll win. Not because we're stronger. Because we want it more. Back in the Council chamber, Draven finally called for order. We vote now. All in favor of authorizing military action to compel humanity to engage in negotiations. Hands, tentacles, appendages and energy fields rose across the chamber. 247 votes in favor. Opposed? 153 votes against. The measure passes. Velthrax, you have authorization to deploy the enforcement fleet. Your objective is to neutralize human military capabilities and force them to the negotiating table. Minimum casualties. This is a peacekeeping operation, not a war. Velthrax bowed. It will be done, High Chancellor. The humans will learn that refusing the Council has consequences. Archon Vex watched the proceedings with sad eyes. He had seen this pattern before millennia ago, when the Council was young and made mistakes they'd spent centuries trying to forget. As he left the chamber, Myrene caught up to him. Archon, what aren't you telling us? Vex stopped, his ancient face troubled. When I was young, before the Council united all species, there were wars. Terrible wars. Do you know what separated the winners from the losers? What? The winners understood that forcing someone to the negotiating table doesn't mean you'll like what they say once they get there. The humans aren't refusing to negotiate out of fear or spite. Vex's eyes met hers. They're refusing because they know something we've forgotten. Real negotiations only happen between equals. And right now they're not our equals. So they're refusing until they are? No, Counselor. They're refusing until we realize we're not theirs. Vex walked away, leaving Myrene standing alone in the empty corridor, suddenly understanding that the Council wasn't dealing with a stubborn child refusing to follow rules. They were dealing with something far more dangerous. A species that had looked at the rules and decided to write their own. The vote had been cast. The fleet would deploy. And humanity's response would change the galaxy forever. First contact, second thoughts. The enforcement fleet assembled at the edge of human space like a swarm of metal locusts. 20,000 warships, representing the combined military might of 400 civilizations, all aimed at a species that had been in space for less than a century. Admiral Kryn Vorash, a veteran of 300 peacekeeping operations, stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Accord. The insectoid warrior had never lost an engagement. Today he expected would be no different. Status report, he clicked through his translator. All vessels in position, Admiral, his tactical officer responded. The human system designated Sol is 3 light hours ahead. No signs of defensive fleets. Our scouts report only minimal patrol craft in the outer system. Vorash's mandibles twitched with something like disappointment. They're not even mounting a defense? It appears not, sir. Intelligence suggests the humans have concentrated their forces around their construction sites elsewhere. Sol itself is practically undefended. Then this will be over quickly. Transmit on all frequencies. Humanity will stand down immediately and present themselves for negotiations, or we will disable their infrastructure until they comply. They have 1 standard hour to respond. The message was broadcast across every communication channel known to galactic civilization, in every language, on every frequency. The fleet waited. 59 minutes passed in silence. Then, with 1 minute remaining, a single transmission came from Earth. Audio only. No video. The voice was female, calm, almost amused. This is Captain Zara Okonkwo, commander of Sol Defense. To the Galactic Council fleet. You have entered human territory without permission. You have 1 minute to withdraw before we consider your presence an act of war. This is your only warning. The bridge of the Eternal Accord fell silent. Then Vorash began laughing, a clicking, chittering sound that his crew had rarely heard. 1 minute, he managed between clicks. They give us 1 minute? With 20,000 ships at their doorstep? Open a channel. The communication line activated. Captain Okonkwo, this is Admiral Vorash of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet. Perhaps you don't understand the situation. You are facing the combined military power of 400 civilizations. You have 300 ships, most of which aren't even in this system. I am offering you one final opportunity to negotiate peacefully. Declined. 30 seconds. Vorash's amusement faded. Captain, I have orders to use force if necessary. Don't make me destroy human infrastructure over pride. 15 seconds. I hope your ships have good shields, Admiral. Is that a threat? You're threatening me? With what weapons? 10 seconds. We'll see. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nothing happened. Vorash waited. His crew scanned for incoming fire, weapon signatures, anything. The scanners remained clear. Captain Okonkwo, whatever game you're... The lights went out. Every light on every ship in the entire fleet. 20,000 vessels went dark simultaneously. Life support, propulsion, weapons, shields, communications. Everything powered by their primary energy systems simply stopped. Vorash's bridge erupted in chaos, crew members shouting in dozens of languages. Emergency lighting flickered on, running on backup batteries. What happened? Vorash demanded. Report. Sir, this doesn't make sense. The primary power cores are still functioning, but the energy isn't reaching any systems. It's like something is draining all the power before it can be used. That's impossible. I know, sir, but... Captain Okonkwo's voice returned over emergency frequencies. Did I mention? About 12 years ago, when we first detected your species, we noticed something interesting. Your ships, all 20,000 of them, use zero-point energy extractors for power. Very efficient. Unfortunately for you, they all operate on the same fundamental frequency. We've been studying that frequency for a decade. What did you do? Vorash breathed. We're not draining your power, Admiral. We're just redirecting it. Every watt your cores generate is currently being funneled into a dampening field that converts the energy into harmless radiation and disperses it. Your ships aren't damaged. They're just off. This is an act of war. No, Admiral. This is a demonstration. You came here to force us to negotiate. We're showing you why that's not going to work. Here's the thing about humanity, we've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We've gotten very, very good at finding creative ways to disable opponents without killing them. You know why? Vorash said nothing. Because we actually value life, even our enemies. The Council sees our refusal to negotiate as aggression. We see it as self-preservation. You have 400 species all agreeing to follow the same rules. That's beautiful, Admiral, it really is. But we've seen what happens when everyone follows the same playbook. It makes you predictable, exploitable, weak. 20,000 ships. mean nothing if they can't move or shoot. Now here's what's going to happen. In about 6 hours we'll release the dampening field. Your ships will power back up. You'll be embarrassed but unharmed. Then you're going to leave human space and not come back unless invited. Are we clear? Vorash's pride warred with reality. The Council will not accept this humiliation. Then the Council is welcome to send more ships for us to turn off. But let me be absolutely clear, Admiral. This was the gentle option. We disabled your fleet with technology. Would you like to see what we can do with actual weapons? You're bluffing. Am I? Your flagship has 4 main reactors, 2 backup systems, and emergency batteries currently powering your bridge. Your shield generators are in sections 7, 12, 18, and 23. Your weapons arrays are controlled from 3 separate stations to prevent single-point failures. Your crew complement is 4,427 individuals, including yourself. We know everything about your ships, Admiral. Everything. Because while you were busy trying to figure out if we were a threat, we were busy learning how to fight you. Vorash checked his ship's manifest. The numbers were exact. How? Do you know what humans did before we went to space, Admiral? We spent centuries fighting wars where information was more valuable than ammunition. We learned to hack, to infiltrate, to understand our enemies better than they understood themselves. When we made first contact with the Council, we didn't just say hello. We infiltrated your networks, copied your databases, and studied your technology. We've been inside your systems for years and you never even noticed. That's... Vorash struggled for words. That's dishonorable. No, that's survival. The Council has been the dominant power for so long, you've forgotten what it's like to face a peer adversary. You thought you were coming here to intimidate primitives. Instead, you walked into a trap designed by a species that's been setting traps for predators since we lived in caves. On Earth, Zara watched her tactical displays with satisfaction. The entire Council fleet was dead in space, and they hadn't fired a single shot. Phase 1 complete, Marcus reported. All enemy vessels neutralized. Any casualties? None. Their life support is still functioning normally. Good. Patch me through to Fleet Command. Tell Admiral Kovac the Council took the bait exactly as predicted. Start Phase 2. Phase 2? I thought the plan was to let them go? Zara smiled. Oh, we'll let them go. But not before we give them something to think about. Back in the Council chamber, the leadership watched live feeds from the enforcement fleet with growing horror. Every ship disabled. Every weapon silent. An entire armada rendered helpless by a species they dismissed as upstarts. This is impossible, Velthrax kept repeating. Impossible. Myrene watched the feeds with grim satisfaction. I tried to warn you. The humans didn't refuse to negotiate because they were afraid. They refused because they knew this would happen. They attacked us. Velthrax roared. This is an act of war. We attacked them, Myrene corrected. We sent 20,000 warships into their territory with an ultimatum. They responded with non-lethal force. Every single crew member is alive and unharmed. If they wanted war, Admiral, those ships would be debris. Draven stared at the screens, his 6 eyes taking in the scope of the defeat. How did they do it? Thornquilix worked frantically at her console. I'm analyzing the sensor data now. It appears they've developed some kind of energy dampening technology that specifically targets zero-point extractors. It's elegant, really. Instead of attacking the ships, they attacked the power source itself. Can we defend against it? Not without completely redesigning our power systems. That would take years and require retrofitting the entire fleet. Then we're defenseless against them? Thorn looked up, her tentacles trembling. No, High Chancellor. We're defenseless against that particular tactic. But here's what concerns me more. This was clearly a prepared response. They knew we were coming. They knew what ships we'd bring. They knew how our power systems work. And they had a countermeasure ready and waiting. Archon Vex had remained silent throughout the crisis, but now he spoke. Because they've been studying us since first contact. While we were debating whether to engage with them, they were learning everything about us. We thought we were in control of this situation. We never were. Velthrax slumped in his seat, his bioluminescence flickering weakly. What do we do now? Before anyone could answer, every screen in the chamber switched to a new feed. Captain Okonkwo's face appeared, the first time any human had addressed the Council directly. She was younger than expected, maybe 40 standard years. Her dark skin and intelligent eyes showed no fear, no anger. Just calm confidence. Galactic Council, she began. I'm Captain Zara Okonkwo, and I'm speaking to you without permission because, frankly, We're tired of waiting for you to understand the situation. You sent 20,000 ships to force us to negotiate. We disabled them without firing a shot. This wasn't luck. This wasn't a surprise. This was us showing you the difference between your civilization and ours. She stood, and the camera pulled back to show her on the bridge of a human ship. You built your society on the idea that all species should work together, follow the same rules, share the same values. That's beautiful. That's admirable. But it's also incredibly naive. You've had 12,000 years of peace because no one challenged you. Not because your system is perfect. Because you were alone. The camera zoomed in on her face. We're not refusing to negotiate because we're hostile. We're refusing because your negotiations aren't negotiations at all. They're surrender terms. Join the council, follow council law, surrender your autonomy, and in exchange you get protection from threats that don't exist because the council is the only power in the galaxy. We don't need your protection. We don't want your rules. And we absolutely will not surrender our freedom just because you've never heard the word no before. Velthrax started to object, but Myrene gestured for silence. Everyone needed to hear this. Your fleet is undamaged, Zara continued. In 6 hours we'll release the dampening field and they can go home. But understand this, we could have destroyed them. We chose not to because we actually mean it when we say we're not your enemy. But we're not your subjects either. She leaned forward. Humanity is offering the council a choice. You can accept that we're not joining your civilization and learn to coexist with us as neighbors and possibly friends. Or you can keep trying to force us to comply, and we'll keep defending ourselves. But know this, every time you come at us with force, we'll respond with innovation. Every time you try to intimidate us, we'll show you why that doesn't work. And eventually, other species are going to notice that we're out here, independent and thriving, and they're going to ask themselves why they need the council at all. The chamber erupted in outrage, but Zara wasn't finished. We know you're listening, High Chancellor Draven. We know you're afraid that if we succeed, the council falls apart. Here's the truth, if the council's only strength is that no one challenges it, then it deserves to fall apart. But if your civilization is truly built on cooperation and mutual benefit, then you should be able to coexist with species that choose a different path. Humanity is not your enemy. But we won't be your subjects. The choice, counselors, is yours. Come at us with force again, and we'll show you what happens when you bring politics to a fight where humans bring strategy. Or accept that the galaxy just got a lot more interesting, and figure out how to deal with us as equals. The transmission ended. The council chamber sat in stunned silence. Then, slowly, Archon Vex began to clap. It was a strange sound, his ancient hands making a rhythm that echoed through the crystalline halls. What are you doing? Velthrax demanded. Applauding, Vex said simply. For the first time in 12,000 years, someone has told the council the truth about itself. That took courage. And wisdom. And it's exactly what we needed to hear. They humiliated us. No, Ambassador. They educated us. And if we're wise, we'll thank them for the lesson instead of making things worse. Draven looked at the empty screen where Zara's face had been. She's right, isn't she? About all of it? Myrene nodded slowly. Yes, High Chancellor. She is. The question is, what do we do about it? And for the first time in its long history, the Galactic Council didn't have an answer. The true price. While the Council debated its response, humanity moved with the precision of a species that had learned to seize opportunities quickly. Commander Elara Voss stood in the command center of Gateway Station Alpha, watching as the massive ring structure completed its final alignment. Around her, holographic displays showed similar installations across 7 different systems, all counting down to activation. Status, she asked her chief engineer Raj Patel. Gateway 1 is at 98%. Gateways 2 through 7 are synchronized and ready. We're go for activation in T-4 minutes. Elara felt her heart racing despite years of military training. This was it. The moment that would change everything. Any sign the council knows what these really are? Negative. Their intelligence still thinks they're weapons platforms. By the time they figure out their instantaneous transportation gates, we'll have colonies established in systems they didn't even know were habitable. 400 species, 12,000 years of expansion, and they never thought to look in the radiation zones, Elara mused. They assumed those regions were uninhabitable because their biology couldn't survive there. But humans can, Raj said with pride. With the right shielding and genetic treatments. We've turned their blind spots into our greatest advantage. The countdown hit 1 minute. Elara opened a secure channel to Admiral Kovac. Sir, Gateway network is ready for activation on your command. Kovac's weathered face appeared on screen. The old admiral had fought in Earth's final wars before unification, and his tactical mind had shaped humanity's entire defensive strategy. Commander Voss, once you activate those gates, there's no going back. The Council will see this as escalation. With respect, sir, they'll see everything we do as escalation until we're strong enough that they have no choice but to accept us. That was always the plan. I know. I just wanted to hear you say it. Make sure you understand what we're about to do. Kovac leaned forward. We're not just refusing to join their club anymore. We're building our own. That makes us a rival, and rivals eventually fight. Unless the rival is strong enough that fighting becomes too costly. Exactly. Activate the network, Commander. Let's show the Council what humanity can do when we're not asking for permission. Ilara turned to her crew. Activate Gateway Network. Authorization Voss Sigma 7. The countdown reached 0. Across 7 systems, massive ring structures hummed to life. Space itself seemed to ripple and tear as the gates opened, creating stable wormholes that connected distant parts of the galaxy instantaneously. The energy requirements were enormous, but humans had solved that problem years ago with technology the Council didn't even know existed. Through the gates, colonization ships began to pour. Thousands of them, carrying millions of people who'd been waiting in cryosleep for this exact moment. In minutes, humanity established a presence in regions of space that would have taken decades to reach through conventional faster-than-light travel. Gateway network stable, Raj reported. Transit efficiency at 99.7%. We're moving 10,000 ships per hour through each gate. Ilara watched the displays with satisfaction. 7 gates, 10,000 ships per hour. The Council is about to discover we have a lot more than 300 ships. Signal all colony vessels. Phase 2 is active. Establish perimeters and begin construction. If the Council shows up, do not engage. Just show them we're already there. Back at the Council chamber, alarms blared across every monitoring station. High Chancellor. Thorn Quillix's voice cracked with stress. We have massive spatial distortions in 7 systems simultaneously. The energy readings they're off the scale. Draven rushed to the central display. The human structures? They're not weapons platforms. They're gates. Faster-than-light gates creating stable wormholes. And there are ships pouring through them. Thousands of ships. Tens of thousands. Velthrax's skin went pale blue with shock. Where did those ships come from? Our intelligence said. Our intelligence was wrong, Myrene interrupted, her voice quiet. Or more likely, the humans fed us false information. They've been building their fleet in secret while we were focused on their visible forces. The displays updated, showing human colonies rapidly establishing themselves in dozens of systems. Systems in radiation zones. Systems near black holes. Systems in unstable regions of space that Council species had deemed too dangerous for colonization. They're claiming the wastelands, Archon Vex observed with something like admiration. The regions we abandoned or never explored because they were too hostile to our biology. How is that possible? Draven demanded. Those radiation levels would kill any known species. Thorn's tentacles worked frantically across her displays. I'm analyzing bioscan data from the colony ships. High Chancellor. The humans aboard those vessels have been genetically modified. Enhanced radiation resistance, improved cellular repair, adaptations for low-gravity environments. They've changed themselves to survive in places we can't. That's illegal. Velthrax protested. Genetic modification is banned by Council law. They're not part of the Council, Myrene reminded him gently. Our laws don't apply to them. Draven stared at the expanding human presence across the galactic map. In less than an hour, humanity had increased its territorial claims by a factor of 50. And they were claiming regions the Council had never wanted. They planned this, he said slowly. Everything. The refusal to negotiate. The disabled fleet. They kept us focused on their home system while they prepared to expand into territory we'd never fight for. It's brilliant, Vex admitted. Morally questionable, perhaps. But brilliant. They're not competing with us for the same space. They're creating their own empire in the gaps we left behind. And now? Draven asked. What do we do now? Before anyone could answer, a new transmission arrived. Not from Captain Okonkwo this time, but from someone else. The video showed a man in his 60s wearing a simple civilian suit, sitting in what appeared to be an office on Earth. Galactic Council, the man began. My name is Director Chin Nakamura, and I lead humanity's diplomatic corps. Yes, we have one. We've just never used it with you. Until now. His expression was neutral, professional. By now you've discovered our gateway network and colony expansion. I want to be clear about our intentions. We are not declaring war on the Council. We are not attempting to undermine your authority over your member species. We are simply establishing ourselves as an independent power with our own territory and our own agenda. However, Chin continued, we recognize that this changes the galactic balance of power, and we're willing to discuss what that means. Note my phrasing, discuss, not negotiate our membership. We will never join the Council as subjects. But we're open to establishing diplomatic relations as equals. Velthrax started to object, but Myrene silenced him with a gesture. Here's what we're proposing, Chin said. Humanity and the Council establish formal borders. We respect yours. You respect ours. We establish trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense pacts against external threats. We work together when our interests align and stay out of each other's way when they don't. In other words, we treat each other like sovereign powers rather than a central authority and its subjects. You have 48 hours to respond. If we don't hear from you, we'll assume the Council prefers continued Cold War, and we'll act accordingly. But if you're willing to accept us as partners rather than subordinates, we can build something better than what either of us has alone. The transmission ended. The Council chamber fell into stunned silence, broken finally by Archon Vex's dry laugh. What's funny? Velthrax demanded. They just did to us what we've done to every other species for 12,000 years. They made us an offer we can't refuse. Except we can refuse, which makes it a genuine negotiation rather than a veiled threat. It's elegant. Infuriating but elegant. Draven turned to his advisors. Opinions? We should mobilize the entire military, Velthrax immediately suggested. Push them back before they become too entrenched. Push them back from where? Myrene countered. From radiation zones and black hole systems we never wanted? Every ship we send to those regions will be operating at a disadvantage while the humans are adapted to survive there. It would be a massacre and they'd be defending, which means they'd win. So we just accept this? I didn't say that. Myrene activated a strategic display. Look at what they're actually proposing. Independent borders. Trade agreements. Mutual defense. They're offering everything the Council provides except the Council's authority over them. In exchange, we get access to their technology, their modified crops and organisms that can survive in hostile environments, and their tactical innovations. You're suggesting we legitimize their rebellion? I'm suggesting we adapt to a new reality. The humans have proven they can defend themselves. They've proven they can expand without our help. And they've proven they're willing to coexist with us if we treat them as equals. What exactly do we gain by continuing to fight them? Thorn Quillix hesitantly raised a tentacle. If I may, there's another consideration. Other species are watching this. If humanity succeeds in remaining independent and prosperous, other Council members might question why they gave up their sovereignty. Exactly my concern, Draven said. If we make a deal with humanity, we're admitting that joining the Council isn't the only path to success. Perhaps, Vex said slowly, that's a lesson we need to learn. The Council was founded on the principle of unity through cooperation. But cooperation doesn't mean everyone follows the same path. Perhaps we've confused unity with uniformity. Are you suggesting we accept humanity's proposal? I'm suggesting we think carefully about what we're really fighting for. Is it peace and prosperity for all species? Or is it the Council's pride? Velthrax stood abruptly. This is madness. If we accept their terms, we're admitting that any species can simply opt out of the galactic order. No, Myrene corrected. We're admitting that the galactic order only works when species choose to participate. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Draven looked around the chamber, seeing the fear and uncertainty in the faces of 400 species representatives. They'd built everything on the assumption that unity meant everyone joining the Council. Humanity had shattered that assumption in a matter of weeks. We need time to discuss this properly, Draven announced. I'm calling an emergency full session. Every member species will have a voice. We reconvene in 12 hours. As the chamber emptied, Myrene approached Vex privately. Do you think the Council will accept? I think the Council will tear itself apart debating it, Vex replied. Some species will see opportunity. Others will see existential threat. But here's what everyone is missing. What? The humans didn't give us 48 hours because they're being generous. They gave us 48 hours because that's all the time they need to finish establishing their colonies. By the time we respond, whether we accept or reject their proposal, they'll already be unassailable. The negotiation is theater. The outcome was decided the moment they activated those gates. Myrene felt a chill. Then why negotiate at all? Because despite everything, I think the humans genuinely want to coexist with us. They've proven they can defeat us. Now they're proving they don't want to. That's the kind of enemy I'd much rather have as a friend. On Earth, Director Chin reviewed the responses flowing in from human colonies across their new territory. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Admiral Kovac appeared on his screen. Director, the Council is in chaos. Some species are calling for total war. Others are ready to accept our terms immediately. As expected. What's your assessment? They'll accept. They have no choice. We've taken territory they can't contest without massive casualties. We've proven our military technology is superior. And we've offered them a face-saving compromise. Draven will sell it as expanding the concept of galactic cooperation, or some diplomatic nonsense. Chin nodded. And in 20 years? In 20 years, half the Council's member species will be questioning why they're part of a central authority when humanity is thriving without it. The Council will either evolve or collapse. Either way we win. You sound almost sympathetic to them. Kovac's expression softened. I am. They built something remarkable. 12,000 years of peace is nothing to dismiss. But they built it on a foundation that couldn't adapt to a species like us. We're not trying to destroy what they created. We're just showing them it doesn't have to be the only way. And if they can't accept that? Then we continue building our own civilization and let history decide which approach was better. But I think they'll surprise us. Fear makes people rigid, but wisdom makes them flexible. The Council has survived 12,000 years. That takes more than just power. It takes the ability to learn. Chin looked at the countdown timer. 46 hours and 12 minutes until humanity's deadline. I hope you're right, Admiral. Because if they choose war instead of peace, things are about to get very ugly. They won't choose war. They'll choose survival. Just like we did. And in the quiet spaces between stars, in systems where radiation made sensors unreliable and conventional life couldn't survive, humanity continued to grow. Building. Adapting. Thriving in the places no one else wanted. Proving that sometimes the best way to win a negotiation was to make it clear you didn't need to negotiate at all. The fracture. The emergency council session began exactly 12 hours after Draven's announcement, but the chamber had never been quieter. 400 species, represented by their finest diplomats and leaders, sat in a silence that felt like the moment before a storm. High Chancellor Draven rose to address the assembly. Counselors, we face a decision that will define the future of our civilization. Humanity has extended an offer of formal diplomatic relations between sovereign powers. They have claimed territory in regions we deemed uninhabitable. And they have demonstrated both the capability and willingness to defend themselves against overwhelming force. He paused, letting his words sink in. The question before us is simple. Do we accept their proposal and recognize them as an independent power, or do we commit to removing them from their new territories by force? Ambassador Kelrith of the Chittering Worlds immediately rose. High Chancellor, with respect, there is a third option. We do nothing. We maintain our current borders, ignore the humans' expansion into the wastelands and continue as we were. Ignoring them is acceptance by default, Velthrax countered. It sends the same message. Perhaps, Kelrith's mandibles clicked thoughtfully, but it sends it more quietly. My people have prospered in the Council for 6,000 years. We have no desire for war with humanity. But we also see no reason to formally legitimize their rejection of Council membership. Let them have their radiation zones and black hole systems. We never wanted them anyway. Murmurs of agreement rippled through several delegations. A new voice spoke up, Councillor Rex Thane, representing the Corvin Dominion, one of the Council's military powerhouses. The Chittering Worlds speak from a position of comfort. They've never had to defend the borders or maintain peace. Some of us have. And I'm telling you, ignoring an emerging power is how wars start. Is that a threat, Counselor? Myrene asked sharply. It's reality. The humans have expanded aggressively, developed weapons we can't counter, and established themselves as a peer military power in weeks. If we don't establish formal boundaries and agreements now, we'll be fighting border skirmishes within a decade. Archon Vex stood slowly, his age making the movement deliberate. The chamber fell silent. When Vex spoke, people listened. I have lived through the integration of 87 species into this council, he began, his voice carrying despite its age. I was there when we incorporated the warlike Kryn. I was there when the isolationist Nethrei finally joined us. I've seen every variation of resistance and acceptance. But I have never seen anything like humanity. He activated a holographic display showing human expansion. Every species we've integrated followed a pattern. They were weaker than the Council, needed our protection, or saw the economic advantages of membership. Humanity needs none of these things. They're not joining us because they don't need us. Then what do they need? Velthrax challenged. Freedom, Vex said simply. The freedom to chart their own course, make their own mistakes, build their own civilization. We offer them safety and prosperity in exchange for sovereignty. They're choosing sovereignty. Can we truly fault them for that? Yes. Velthrax's skin flashed angry red. Because their choice undermines everything we've built. If species can simply opt out of galactic governance, then galactic governance better prove it's worth opting into, Vex finished. Perhaps that's what frightens you, Ambassador? Not that humanity chose independence, but that they might succeed without us. The chamber erupted in heated debate. Some species supported Velthrax's position. Humanity's independence was an existential threat to the Council's authority. Others agreed with Kelrith. Leave them alone and focus on the Council's own territories. A few, mostly younger civilizations, quietly admired what humanity had accomplished. Draven called for order. We need a decision. I'm calling for a vote. 3 options: accept humanity's proposal and establish formal diplomatic relations, commit military forces to removing them from disputed territories, or maintain current policy and ignore their expansion. High Chancellor, a new voice spoke. It was Councillor Yara Quinn of the Talesian Federation, a species known for their economic prowess. Before we vote, I'd like to share some information that may be relevant. Proceed. Yara activated her own display showing trade data. In the 3 weeks since humanity closed its borders to Council contact, 17 of our member species have attempted to establish unauthorized trade channels with human colonies. 12 succeeded. The humans are trading raw materials, technology, and genetic treatments for things they can't easily produce themselves. Luxury goods, cultural items, specialized minerals from our more hospitable regions. The chamber erupted again. That's illegal. Velthrax shouted. Trading with non-council entities without authorization is technically legal, Yara interrupted smoothly, if the goods being traded aren't on the restricted list. And the humans have been very careful to avoid restricted items. My point, councillors, is that the galactic economy is already adapting to humanity's existence. Commerce doesn't wait for politics. Are you suggesting we're being made irrelevant? Draven asked quietly. I'm suggesting that whether we vote to accept, reject, or ignore humanity, they're already part of the galactic landscape. The only question is whether we engage with them on formal terms or let informal channels continue to develop. Myrene seized the opportunity. Councillor Yara makes an excellent point. We can vote to reject humanity all we want, but if our member species are already trading with them, our vote is meaningless. We might as well establish formal channels we can regulate. Velthrax looked around the chamber and saw his support crumbling. Species that had been calling for military action were now reconsidering. The economic argument was compelling. Humanity had resources and technology others wanted. Formal trade agreements would benefit everyone. This is a mistake, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Draven called for the vote. All in favor of accepting humanity's proposal and establishing formal diplomatic relations? 234 votes in favor. Opposed? 143 against. Abstaining? 23 abstentions. The measure passes. Councillor Myrene, you've been sympathetic to humanity's position. I'm appointing you as chief negotiator. You'll meet with their representatives and establish the framework for our new relationship. Myrene bowed. I'm honored, High Chancellor. I'll need full authority to negotiate borders, trade agreements, and mutual defense provisions. You have it. But Myrene, make sure they understand this doesn't mean we're equals. The Council still represents 400 civilizations. They represent one. Myrene smiled slightly. With respect, High Chancellor, I think the humans already understand the numbers. That's why they're so confident. As the session ended, Velthrax approached Archon Vex in the corridor. You supported them. Why? Vex studied the younger ambassador. Because I'm old enough to remember when the Council was new and fragile. We survived because we adapted to changing circumstances. Humanity is a changing circumstance. We either adapt or we become irrelevant. They made us look weak. No, Ambassador. They made us look exactly as strong as we are, which is very strong but not all-powerful. There's a difference. Acknowledging our limits isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Velthrax walked away unsatisfied. But Vex watched him go with understanding. Fear of change was natural. The question was whether the Council could evolve past that fear. On Mars, Director Chin received word of the Council's vote with quiet satisfaction. Phase 3 complete, he told Admiral Kovac. They've accepted our proposal. Counselor Myrene will be leading their delegation. Myrene? Kovac pulled up her file. The one who argued against military action from the start. They're sending someone who's already sympathetic to our position. That's surprisingly smart of them. Or surprisingly desperate. They know military force failed. Economic isolation is failing. Their only option is genuine diplomacy. So what's our position going into negotiations? Chen pulled up humanity's strategic objectives. We want formal recognition as an independent power. Clear borders with no council jurisdiction over human territory. Free trade agreements with any council species that wants them. And most importantly, a mutual defense clause that obligates us to aid each other if either is attacked by external forces. External forces? There are no external forces. The Council is the only galactic power. They are now. But in 50 years? 100? The galaxy is a big place. If there's one thing humanity's rise should teach the Council, it's that new powers can emerge quickly. Having a mutual defense agreement means when, not if, another species like us appears, we'll face them together instead of separately. Kovac leaned back. You're thinking long-term. I'm thinking survival. The Council spent 12,000 years as the dominant power. That made them complacent. We've been the underdog for our entire history. That made us paranoid. But paranoia and complacency are both liabilities. What we need is partnership between their experience and our innovation. And if they try to use the negotiations to slip in clauses that give them authority over us, then we walk away and continue building our own civilization. But I don't think they will. Myrene isn't stupid. She knows we're negotiating from strength now. The best she can hope for is a fair agreement that both sides can live with. Which is all we're offering anyway. Exactly. Sometimes the best negotiations are the ones where everyone gets what they actually need, even if it's not what they originally wanted. Admiral Kovac smiled. You know what the best part of all this is? What? 6 months ago, the Council didn't even know we existed as a potential threat. Now they're sending their top diplomat to negotiate with us as equals. We've rewritten the rules of galactic politics without firing a shot in anger. That's the most human thing we could possibly do. Chin laughed. We're good at that. Changing the game when we can't win at the game being played. So what's our real endgame here? Do we actually want partnership with the Council, or is this just buying time to build up our strength? Chin considered the question carefully. Honestly, I think we want what we've always wanted, to be left alone to do things our way. But we're smart enough to know that isolation isn't sustainable long-term. The Council has knowledge, resources, and diplomatic connections we don't. We have adaptability, innovation, and a willingness to take risks they've forgotten how to take. Together, we could actually build something better than either of us alone. That's optimistic. It's realistic. The Council isn't evil, Admiral. They're just stuck in their ways. Sometimes all you need to break people out of stagnation is competition. We're providing that competition. In 20 years, I bet the Council will be better for it. And if we're wrong? Then we'll have 20 years head start on building our own civilization before they figure out how to fight us effectively. Either way, humanity wins. Kovac stood to leave, then paused. Director, permission to speak freely? Always. What we've done here, refusing to negotiate until we were strong enough to dictate terms, was it right? Morally, I mean. Chin met his eyes. No species in history has ever gained freedom by asking nicely. The Council offered us a place in their civilization, and we said no because we saw the strings attached. They tried force and we proved it wouldn't work. Now we're offering them partnership between equals. Is that moral? I don't know. But it's honest. And sometimes honesty is the best morality we can manage. Kovac nodded and left. Chin sat alone in his office looking at Earth through the window. Humanity had gambled everything on this strategy, refusing to negotiate until they could negotiate from strength. It had worked. But the real test was yet to come. Could humans and the Council actually work together? Or had they created an enemy that would eventually destroy them? Only time would tell. And for the first time in human history, they had allies who might help them find out. Even if those allies didn't know they were allies yet. The truth beneath. Counselor Myrene arrived at Gateway Station Alpha 3 days after the vote, accompanied by a small delegation. As her shuttle approached the massive ring structure, she couldn't help but marvel at its construction. "It's beautiful," she murmured. Her aide, a young Pandari named Soren, checked his data pad. "Beautiful and terrifying. These gates give humanity instant access to hundreds of systems. With enough gates, they could have a galaxy-spanning empire within years. If that was their goal, they'd be building more gates. They're not. They stopped at 7. How do you know?" Myrene smiled. "Because I've been studying them, Soren. Really studying them, not just looking at military assessments and economic projections. Do you know what humanity did immediately after activating the Gateway network? Established colonies? They established hospitals. Medical facilities in every single new system, offering free treatment to any species willing to visit. Several of our member species have already sent patients to human medical stations for genetic treatments that cure diseases we consider incurable." Soren frowned. "That doesn't sound like a species bent on domination." "Exactly. Which means their refusal to join the council was never about hostility. It was about something else." The shuttle docked, and Myrene was escorted to a conference room where Director Chen waited, along with Captain Zara Okonkwo and Admiral Kovac. The room was deliberately neutral. No power displays, no military presence, just a table and chairs. "Counselor Myrene," Chen greeted her warmly. "Thank you for coming. Director Chen. I appreciate humanity's willingness to finally engage in dialogue." "Finally?" Chen smiled. "We've been willing to engage in dialogue since the beginning. We just weren't willing to have the dialogue you wanted. The one where we join the council. The one where we surrender our autonomy, yes." Myrene took her seat. "Then let's have the dialogue we should have had from the start. What? Why refuse to even negotiate? The council has integrated species far more militaristic than humans. We've accommodated isolationists, hive minds, energy beings. We're very good at finding compromise." Chen glanced at Zara, who nodded. "Counselor, can I show you something?" He activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. Images flashed by: humans building civilizations, fighting wars, creating art, exploring space. Then the images slowed, focusing on the 22nd century. "This is when we first detected your signals," Chen explained. "Radio transmissions from council ships exploring the outer edges of the Orion Arm. We weren't advanced enough for faster-than-light travel yet, but we were close. And we were curious." The images showed humans building massive telescopes, analyzing data, decoding council communications. "For 10 years we just listened," Chen continued. "We learned your languages, studied your culture, analyzed your political structure. And we noticed something interesting. New images appeared, a graph showing how species evolved after joining the council. Every single species that joined you experienced the same pattern. Initial technological boom as they gained access to council knowledge. Then, stagnation. Innovation rates dropped. Cultural development slowed. They became stable, comfortable, safe." Myrene felt defensive. "Safety and stability are good things." "They are," Zara agreed, speaking for the first time. "If that's what you value most. But humans, we don't. We value growth, challenge, the freedom to fail spectacularly and learn from our mistakes. Your council offers security, but it also enforces conformity. Every species that joins gives up a piece of what made them unique." "That's not true," Myrene protested. "We celebrate diversity." "You celebrate diversity of form," Chen corrected gently. "Not diversity of thought. Every council species follows the same basic political structure, the same economic model, the same approach to problem solving. You've created a monoculture disguised as a diverse civilization." Myrene wanted to argue, but something in his words rang uncomfortably true. When was the last time a council species had fundamentally disagreed with major policy? When had anyone proposed a radically different approach to anything? "So you studied us for 10 years, she said slowly, "and decided we weren't worth joining." "We decided we needed to be strong enough to say no before we made contact," Admiral Kovac interjected. "Because we knew once you knew about us, you'd try to integrate us. It's what you do. And if we were weak when that happened, we might have accepted out of fear or need. So you built up your military, developed countermeasures to our technology, and deliberately kept us ignorant of your capabilities." "Yes. That's remarkably paranoid." "That's human," Zara said with a slight smile. We survived on a planet that tried to kill us regularly. We fought wars with ourselves that nearly rendered our species extinct. Paranoia kept us alive when optimism would have gotten us killed. The Council's way works for species that evolved in safer environments. It doesn't work for us. Myrene absorbed this information, feeling like she was finally understanding the picture. You're not refusing to negotiate because you hate the Council. You're refusing because you're protecting yourselves from becoming something you're not. Exactly, Chin confirmed. We've seen what happens to species that prioritize security over freedom. They survive, yes, but they stop growing. Stop pushing boundaries. Stop being themselves. We can't let that happen to us, even if it means facing the most powerful civilization in the galaxy alone. But you're not alone anymore, Myrene observed. You've established your own territory, proven your military strength, and now you're offering partnership. You've recreated the Council's dynamic with different roles. Not quite, Chin said. We're offering something the Council has never tried: partnership between truly independent powers. We make our own decisions in our space. You make yours in your space. When our interests align, we cooperate. When they don't, we peacefully coexist. It's a fundamentally different relationship than the one you have with your member species. Myrene thought about the Council's structure. Every species nominally independent but ultimately subject to Council authority. Every decision filtered through committees and regulations. It had worked for 12,000 years, but what happens when we disagree? She asked. If there's no central authority, who decides what's right? We both decide for ourselves. And we live with the consequences of our choices. Zara leaned forward. Counselor, I think your real question is, can humans be trusted without oversight? The answer is no. We can't. But neither can any species, including yours. The difference is we admit it. We don't pretend to have all the answers. The Council doesn't pretend. The Council has been the unquestioned authority in this galaxy for 12,000 years. You've forgotten what it's like to be challenged. To have someone say, your way might not be the only way, and be strong enough that you have to listen. We're not your enemies, Counselor. We're your reality check. The words hung in the air. Myrene felt them settle into her understanding like pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. You want us to be better, she said quietly. We want us to be better, Chin corrected. Both species. You push us to be more cooperative, more open to dialogue. We push you to question assumptions, innovate, remember what you were before you became comfortable. Together we might actually create something worth building. Or we might destroy each other. There's that risk, yes. Chin smiled. But since when has playing it safe ever led to greatness? Myrene found herself smiling back despite her concerns. These humans were infuriating, brilliant, dangerous, and oddly charming. All right, let's talk about borders. What exactly are you proposing? Over the next 6 hours they negotiated. Humanity would retain full sovereignty over all systems they'd claimed. The Council would maintain authority over its member species. A neutral zone would be established where neither held primary jurisdiction. A region for independent colonies, trade stations, and cultural exchange. Trade would be unrestricted between human and Council space, with standard tariffs and safety regulations both sides could agree on. Technology transfer would be permitted but not required. Military forces would not enter each other's territory without invitation. The sticking point came on the mutual defense clause. You want the Council to come to humanity's defense if you're attacked, Myrene said. But who would attack you? There are no other powers in this region of the galaxy. Admiral Kovac leaned back. That you know of. Explain. He activated a star map showing regions beyond Council space. Your civilization has explored maybe 15% of the galaxy. You focused on the most habitable, resource-rich regions and built your empire there. Smart strategy. But what's in the other 85%? Mostly uninhabitable systems, radiation zones, areas too dangerous or resource-poor to be worth exploring. Exactly what you thought about the systems we just colonized. What if there are other species out there, in regions you deem not worth investigating? Species that adapted to hostile environments like we did? Species that might look at the Council's comfortable territory and see something worth taking? Myrene felt a chill. That's speculation. It's probability, Chin corrected. The galaxy is vast. The odds that we're the only species to evolve in harsh conditions and develop advanced technology are effectively zero. We're just the first ones who found you instead of the other way around. And you want a mutual defense pact in case these hypothetical species appear. We want it because threats don't stay hypothetical forever, Zara said. Counselor, humanity survived by preparing for threats before they materialized. The Council survived by being so powerful that threats avoided you. Different strategies, both valid. But your strategy only works as long as you're the strongest power around. And you don't think we are anymore. We think you're strong in conventional ways, Kovacs said carefully. But you're also predictable. Your tactics, your weapons, your strategies, they're all documented, studied, understood by anyone who's been paying attention. You've had no reason to innovate because you've had no peer competitors. Until now. Which means if something else is out there watching and learning like we did, they know everything about you and you know nothing about them. That's dangerous. Myrene saw the logic but bristled at the implication. This feels like a threat disguised as concern. It's not a threat, Chin said firmly. It's an offer. If another power emerges, humanity and the Council working together stand a better chance than either of us alone. We bring adaptability and innovation. You bring experience and numbers. That's a powerful combination. And if humanity is the threat? If this is all just a ploy to get access to our military structure? Then you'll have our full military protocols, communication systems, and strategic doctrine as part of the Mutual Defense Agreement, Chin said, sliding a data chip across the table. Everything we're asking you to share, we're sharing first. Including things we've kept secret until now. Myrene looked at the chip with surprise. Everything? Almost everything. There are some things we're keeping confidential, just like you will. But enough to prove we're serious about partnership. She picked up the chip, feeling its weight. This was a test of trust. If she analyzed this data and found humanity was lying or holding back crucial information, negotiations would collapse. If the data was genuine, I'll need to verify this with my military advisors. Of course, take all the time you need. They adjourned for the day. As Myrene returned to her quarters on the station, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something. The humans had been too prepared, too strategic. Everything they did seemed calculated to achieve a specific outcome. She activated her secure communicator and contacted High Chancellor Draven privately. His face appeared, showing the strain of recent weeks. Counselor Myrene. Progress. Some. They're willing to negotiate in good faith. But High Chancellor, I think we need to reconsider our assumptions about humanity's motivations. Explain. They're not trying to destroy the Council or undermine our authority. They're trying to survive something they think is coming. Something we haven't prepared for. Another species? Or something worse? They've spent their entire existence assuming the worst and preparing for it. What if their paranoia isn't paranoia at all? What if they're right? Draven was quiet for a moment. You're saying we should take their concerns seriously. I'm saying we should take them as partners seriously. If they're this worried about external threats and they've been right about everything else, then perhaps we should be worried too. Draven sighed. I'll convene the military council. If we're going to commit to mutual defense, we need to understand what we might be defending against. There's something else. The humans gave me a data chip with their military protocols. Complete specifications. They shared it before we agreed to anything. That's unexpected. Either they're incredibly naive or incredibly confident. Or they're proving they trust us and hoping we'll reciprocate. Analyze that data, Counselor. If it's genuine, it changes everything. If it's a deception, then we walk away and nothing changes. But I don't think it's a deception. I think they're genuinely offering partnership. After disconnecting, Myrene handed the data chip to Soren. Get this to our best analyst. I want to know if it's real and if so, what it tells us about human capabilities. Yes, Counselor. Alone in her quarters, Myrene looked out at the gateway structure, watching ships pass through it effortlessly. The humans had accomplished in weeks what had taken the Council centuries. Not because they were smarter or stronger, but because they were willing to take risks the Council had forgotten how to take. Maybe that was the real lesson here. Not that humanity was dangerous, but that they remembered something the Council had lost. The willingness to gamble everything on an uncertain future rather than cling to a comfortable present. Meanwhile, in a secure facility on Europa, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo reviewed deep space sensor data with growing unease. Kenji, you need to see this, she called to her colleague. Dr. Yamamoto came over, looking at the screen. What am I looking at? Anomalous readings from the Perseus arm, sector 447. It's faint, but our new sensor network is picking up energy signatures that don't match any known natural phenomenon or Council technology. Could be a pulsar or... I checked. No stellar objects in that region that could produce this signature. It's artificial, Kenji. And it's moving. Moving toward us? No. Parallel to the galactic plane heading toward Council core territories. Whatever it is, it's big and it's fast. If it maintains current course and speed, it'll reach Council space in approximately 8 years. Kenji felt his blood run cold. Have you told Kovac? Not yet. I wanted to be sure. But Kenji, this is what the Admiral has been warning about. We're not alone out here. And whatever this is, it's not friendly. Friendly species announce themselves. They don't skulk through deep space on a vector that happens to aim at the largest civilization in the galaxy. How confident are you in this data? 70%. Could be sensor error or some natural phenomenon we don't understand. But 30% chance this is real. Is too high to ignore. Send it to Kovac. Encrypt it maximum. And Sarah? Yes. Don't tell anyone else. Not yet. If the Council finds out we detected a potential threat before negotiations are complete, they'll think we manufactured it to force their hand. Didn't we? No. We prepared for this possibility. That's different than creating it. Kenji looked at the data with a mixture of vindication and dread. We've been telling everyone we need mutual defense because threats don't stay hypothetical. I was really hoping we were wrong. Me too. But if we're right, then the Council and humanity better figure out how to work together in the next 8 years, or we're all going to learn the hard way why being paranoid isn't the same as being wrong. Sarah encrypted the data and sent it to Admiral Kovac with a priority flag. Somewhere in the deep darkness between stars, something was moving toward inhabited space. And humanity's refusal to negotiate until they were strong enough to face threats on their own terms was about to prove to be either the most brilliant strategy or the most tragic mistake in human history. The question was whether the Council would realize it in time. The price of peace. 2 days later, Counselor Myrene reconvened with the human delegation. But this time Admiral Kovac had a new guest with him, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo. Counselor, Kovac began without preamble, we need to accelerate these negotiations. Something's happened. Myrene felt her stomach tighten. What kind of something? Dr. Okonkwo activated a holographic display showing deep space sensor data. 3 days ago, our new sensor network detected this. The display showed a faint energy signature moving through space. It's artificial. It's large. And it's heading toward Council space on a direct vector. Myrene studied the data. This could be anything. A derelict ship, a probe. With an energy output equivalent to 1,000 Council battleships? Sarah countered. Moving at speeds that exceed our fastest vessels? Counselor, this is either an invasion fleet or something worse. Or it's fabricated data designed to scare us into accepting your terms. The room fell silent. Then Chin spoke quietly, Counselor Myrene, I understand your skepticism. If our positions were reversed, I'd be suspicious too. But consider, we've been negotiating in good faith for days. We've shared military secrets. Why would we jeopardize all of that with a lie you could easily disprove? To force a mutual defense pact before we're ready. We don't need to force anything. You've already been leaning toward accepting our proposal. This data doesn't change that, it just adds urgency. Myrene looked at the sensor readings again. If this was real, I need to verify this with our own sensors. Of course, we'll provide exact coordinates. But Counselor, if this is what we think it is, we have 8 years. Maybe less. That's not a lot of time to prepare a joint defense if our civilizations are still figuring out how to work together. Myrene made a decision. I'm sending this data to High Chancellor Draven immediately. If it's verified, we'll need emergency sessions. Full military coordination. This goes beyond trade agreements and border disputes. Agreed, Kovac said. Which is why we're proposing a joint task force. Human and Council officers working together to analyze the threat, develop response strategies, and coordinate our militaries. You're asking for full integration. We're asking for cooperation. There's a difference. Myrene transmitted the data to Draven with a priority flag, then waited. The response came faster than she expected. All Council members, immediate emergency session. Mandatory attendance. Subject, potential external threat. He verified it, Myrene breathed. He had deep space monitoring stations in the region, Sarah confirmed. Old installations you haven't checked in decades. We cross-referenced their data with ours. The signature is real. The emergency council session was unlike any in recorded history. 400 species, all connected via faster-than-light communication, all focused on a single holographic display showing the approaching anomaly. High Chancellor Draven spoke with barely controlled tension. 18 hours ago, humanity shared sensor data indicating an unknown object approaching Council space. We've confirmed their findings. This is not natural. This is not one of our vessels. And based on its energy signature, it significantly outclasses our military capabilities. The chamber erupted in panic. How is this possible? Velthrax demanded. Our sensors cover all approaches to Council space. Apparently not, Archon Vex said dryly. The humans found it with technology we don't have, in a region we don't monitor, using sensor frequencies we don't scan. Perhaps if we'd been innovating instead of stagnating, we'd have seen this coming. This isn't the time for. This is exactly the time, Vex interrupted. Humanity tried to tell us. Not with words but with actions. They built defenses, developed new technology, prepared for threats we didn't believe existed. And now one is on our doorstep. Myrene stood. High Chancellor, humanity has proposed a joint task force to coordinate our response. I recommend we accept immediately. A joint task force means giving humans access to our military structure, Councillor Rex Thane objected. How do we know they're not the ones bringing this threat to us? Because if they wanted to destroy us they already could have, Myrene snapped. They've proven they can disable our fleets. They've established positions we can't assault without massive casualties. If they were hostile we'd already be fighting. Instead they're warning us and offering to help. Admiral Kovac's voice came through the communication link. Counselors, Admiral Kovac speaking. I'm transmitting our preliminary analysis of the approaching object. Based on its trajectory, speed, and energy output, we estimate it's a fleet of approximately 500 vessels. Unknown design. Unknown species. Unknown intentions. But let me be clear. If those intentions are hostile, neither the Council alone nor humanity alone can stop them. Together we might have a chance. The holographic display updated, showing tactical projections. The numbers were sobering. The approaching fleet could devastate Council core worlds before they even mobilized a response. What are you proposing? Draven asked. Full military cooperation. Joint command structure. Shared technology. We stop being two separate powers and start being an alliance. Not because we trust each other completely, but because we need each other to survive. Velthrax's skin flickered through colors of emotion. This is exactly what they wanted. They manufactured this crisis to force us to. Ambassador Velthrax, a new voice interrupted. It was Captain Zara Okonkwo. With respect, if we wanted to force the Council into anything, we wouldn't have spent 12 years preparing to stand alone. We'd have shown up, acted friendly, and integrated ourselves into your power structure. Then, when you were dependent on us, we'd have made our move. That's how manipulation works. She paused. What we did instead was refuse contact, build our own defenses, and prove we could survive without you. We only offered partnership after we didn't need it. That's not manipulation. That's respect. Respect. Velthrax laughed bitterly. You humiliated our fleet, claimed territory without permission, and now you're telling us we need you to survive. No, Zara corrected. We're telling you we need each other. There's a difference. Humanity isn't some savior come to rescue you. We're potential partners facing a common threat. You have resources, experience, and numbers. We have adaptability, innovation, and paranoia that apparently pays off. Together we're stronger than apart. Archon Vex spoke softly. The captain is right. This isn't about dominance or submission anymore. It's about survival. I move to accept humanity's proposal for a joint task force and begin immediate military integration. Seconded, Myrene said quickly. The vote was called. This time it was overwhelming, 376 in favor, 24 opposed. The measure passes, Draven announced. Admiral Kovac, Captain Okonkwo, you're authorized to begin coordinating with our military command. Councillor Myrene, you'll continue negotiations on the political framework. We need formal agreements in place within 6 months. Understood, High Chancellor. As the session ended, Velthrax approached Myrene privately. You realize what we've done? We've legitimized their defiance. No, Myrene said quietly. We've acknowledged reality. The galaxy isn't what we thought it was. Humanity isn't what we thought they were. And we're not as secure as we believed. If accepting that is legitimizing defiance, then perhaps defiance is exactly what we needed. Over the following months, the Joint Task Force transformed both civilizations. Human officers worked alongside Council military leaders, sharing tactics and strategies. Council scientists collaborated with human researchers, combining knowledge that had developed along completely different paths. The results were remarkable. Human adaptive warfare doctrines merged with Council strategic planning. Council shield technology enhanced with human power management systems. Together they developed weapons, tactics, and defensive strategies neither could have created alone. Cultural exchange followed military cooperation. Human civilians visited Council worlds, marveling at civilizations that had achieved stability and peace. Council citizens traveled to human colonies, experiencing the raw energy and chaos of a species that valued freedom over security. Neither side understood the other perfectly. There were arguments, misunderstandings, moments when the alliance seemed fragile. But slowly something new emerged. Not Council civilization, not human civilization, but something shared between them. 6 years after the negotiations began, Captain Zara Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Joint Defense Station Horizon, a massive structure built by both civilizations as a symbol of their alliance. Counselor Myrene stood beside her, both watching the sensor displays. 2 years until contact, Zara said quietly. Do you think we're ready? No. But we're more ready than either of us would have been alone. Myrene looked at the tactical displays showing the combined fleet. Council ships with their elegant designs and proven systems, human vessels with their aggressive lines and experimental weapons. 15,000 ships in total, positioned along the projected approach vector. Why did you really refuse to negotiate? Myrene asked suddenly. The truth, not the strategic answer. Zara was quiet for a moment. Because every human child learns about what happens when you negotiate from weakness. We've got thousands of years of history showing us that the strong don't respect requests, they respect resistance. We needed you to understand we were serious about independence before we could be serious about partnership. You risked everything. We risked what we had to risk. Freedom isn't free, counselor. It never has been. Sometimes you have to be willing to stand alone before anyone will stand with you. And if we'd attacked in force? If we'd committed our entire military to crushing you? Then we'd have fought and probably lost. But at least we'd have fought. There are worse things than dying free. Myrene shook her head. You humans are exhausting. We prefer persistent. That too. Myrene smiled despite herself. You know what the strangest part of all this is? A year ago I would have said humanity was our greatest threat. Now I can't imagine facing what's coming without you. That's what partnership does. It changes perspectives. An alarm sounded. New data from the deep space sensors. Contact in 18 months, the tactical officer announced. The fleet is slowing. They've detected our preparations. Good, Zara said grimly. Let them see we're ready. Let them see two civilizations standing together instead of apart. And if they're friendly? Myrene asked. Then we'll make 3 civilizations standing together. But if they're not? Then they'll learn what humanity tried to teach us. That underestimating your opponents because they seem divided is a mistake. We're not divided anymore. Across human and council space, citizens watched the broadcast showing the combined fleet. 2 civilizations that had nearly gone to war now stood united against an unknown threat. Not because they'd overcome all their differences, but because they'd learned to value what each brought to the partnership. In the council chamber, Archon Vex watched the same broadcast with satisfaction. He'd lived long enough to see the council at its founding, through its golden age and into its stagnation. Now perhaps he'd live to see it renewed. What are you thinking, old friend? Draven asked, approaching quietly. I'm thinking that humanity gave us a gift, High Chancellor. Not the gift of their technology or military prowess. The gift of remembering why we formed the council in the first place. To unite against threats? To unite in pursuit of something greater than ourselves. We'd forgotten that. We'd become comfortable, secure, stagnant. Humanity reminded us that growth requires challenge and challenge requires risk. They also nearly tore us apart. Growing pains, Vex said with a smile. Worth it for what we gained. On Earth, Director Chin stood before the United Human Assembly, delivering his final report before retiring. When we first detected the council, he began, we faced a choice. Submit to a power we didn't understand or resist and face the consequences. We chose resistance. Not out of arrogance or hostility, but out of a fundamental belief that freedom was worth fighting for. Many of you questioned that choice. Some called it suicidal. Others called it brilliant. In truth, it was neither. It was simply human. We looked at the galaxy's dominant power and said the one word they'd never heard before, no. But saying no was never the end goal. It was the beginning. We said no to submission so we could later say yes to partnership. We refused to negotiate from weakness so we could negotiate from strength. And in doing so, we didn't just protect ourselves. We reminded the Council of something they'd forgotten. That diversity isn't just about different species following the same rules. It's about different approaches to the same challenges. The Council offered us safety through conformity. We offered them strength through independence. Together, we're building something neither of us could build alone. In 18 months, we'll face our first test. An unknown fleet approaches and we'll meet it together. Whatever happens, humanity will face it as free people in alliance with other free peoples. Not as subjects. Not as conquerors. As partners. That's worth everything we risked. Everything we sacrificed. And if I had to make the choice again, I'd make the same one. Because sometimes the only way to find true friends is to prove you don't need them. And then choose them anyway. The assembly erupted in applause. Chin stepped down from the podium, his work complete. 18 months later, the unknown fleet entered sensor range. It was larger than projected, 800 ships instead of 500. But the combined Council-Human alliance was ready. Captain Zara Okonkwo commanded the forward defense fleet from her flagship. Beside her, in a gesture of unified command, Counselor Myrene served as the Council's representative. Open all hailing frequencies, Zara ordered. Let's see if we can end this with words instead of weapons. And if they don't respond? Myrene asked. Then we show them why it's a mistake to threaten two civilizations that have learned to work together. The message was broadcast. Unknown fleet, this is the Alliance Defense Force representing the United Council and human territories. State your intentions and identify yourselves. Silence. Then finally a response came. The voice was unlike anything either civilization had heard. Harmonic, layered, alien in ways that made translation difficult. But the meaning was clear. We are the Nexus Collective. We have observed your civilizations from afar. We come seeking understanding. And perhaps alliance. Zara and Myrene looked at each other in shock. They're not hostile? Myrene breathed. Apparently not. Though 800 warships is an interesting way to request a meeting. Says the species that refused to negotiate until they had proven military strength, Myrene countered with a smile. Zara laughed despite the tension. Fair point. All right, let's see if we can turn potential enemies into friends. Again. The Nexus Collective fleet slowed to a halt, maintaining a respectful distance. Diplomatic channels opened. And for the second time in a decade, humanity and the Council faced the challenge of integrating a new power into the galactic landscape. But this time they faced it together. Years later, historians would debate what would have happened if humanity had simply joined the Council from the beginning. Would the Alliance have been ready when the Nexus arrived? Would the Council have maintained its stagnation? The consensus was clear. Humanity's refusal to negotiate created chaos, tension, and near war. But it also forced both civilizations to evolve, adapt, and ultimately create something stronger than either could have built alone. Sometimes peace isn't achieved by everyone agreeing. Sometimes it's achieved by people learning to disagree respectfully, to maintain their identities while working toward common goals, and to value independence as much as cooperation. The Galactic Council had learned this lesson the hard way. But they'd learned it. And the galaxy would be forever changed by a single species that looked at the most powerful civilization in existence and simply said, no. But we're willing to talk as equals. That conversation, that refusal to submit followed by willingness to partner, became the foundation for a new era. Not of unity through conformity, but of strength through diversity. Not of peace through dominance, but of cooperation through mutual respect. And it all started because one species refused to negotiate until they could negotiate on their own terms.